So, Oliver, you have joined me many times on this podcast, and we've talked about serious things before and we've had our chuckles, but I really want to focus, as my intro said, I've been seeing more about Michael J. Fox recently that has popped up in the news, and it made me think of you. And I also said in my intro, to be real, I don't try to like BS people. I was running procrastinating, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need a guest. And I knew you were gracious enough to join me and gracious enough to talk to me. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis of Parkinson's, when that happened, if you kind of suspected something was going on, or like what was that process like for you when you found out?
Sure. Well, again, thank you as always for letting me talk to you because I enjoy seeing you and hearing you and listening to your podcast all the time and learning things. And I hope this generates some sort of knowledge out in the air that some people don't know by sharing my story. So thank you again. I, the only thing I knew about Parkinson's at the time was Michael J. Fox and my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, as we called him, Grandpa Rick. His last name was Rick Walder, my mom's dad. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but like later in life, maybe late 60s, early 70s. I can't really remember the time. So for me, it wasn't like those are my only references with Parkinson's disease. So not a lot. I didn't read into it very much. I wasn't diagnosed with the disease until April 2021. I started having symptoms around October 2020. And what I noticed was a tremor in my left hand. And with 2020, the year that it was, stressful, my mom passed away, COVID, there was a lot of things. I lost my job. We were looking to relocate. There was a lot of stress going on. So I really didn't think too much about it. It wasn't until around the holidays where I was having dinner with my husband and he looked at, all of a sudden I was eating, enjoying the dinner. And he looked at me and said, "What's that all about?" And I said, "What?" And he pointed to my hand and it was tremoring because I didn't, sometimes I really don't know. So that was when I was like, okay, maybe I should call a doctor. So I called my doctor, I set up an appointment. All he said was, oh, it could be, I forget what he called it. It could be something, an involuntary tremor, and it's nothing, don't be worried, concerned about it, but, set up me with an appointment with a neurologist. Now, once I had the tremor, of course, I immediately thought of my grandfather because he had a left-hand tremor. So the diagnosis was kind of, I didn't want to get that, but it was something that kind of was checked off in my head, like it could possibly be, because but again, I don't know a lot about the disease. So went to a doctor, and this was April 2021. We were about to move to North Carolina. So it was very like, in and out. And all of a sudden, you're not really diagnosed. Well, you are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, but there's no test. There's no blood work. There's no x-ray. There's nothing that says, yep, you definitely have it. Here it is. Like tumor, like, oh, you see this on the x-ray. There's nothing that says, here's your Parkinson's or here's your Parkinson's. So it was just basically me walking down the hall, looking at me, smiling at him, doing all these muscular tests and stuff. And then he came back in the room and said, "You have Parkinson's disease." So I was like, okay, whatever. Like I took it with, sure I do, because all I did was walk up and down the hall and you're going to tell me I have Parkinson's disease. So me being who I am, I went to and again, in the meaning of moving, finding a new job, coming to North Carolina, I went to another doctor. The day we left with the trucks all packed up, I had another appointment with another neurologist who literally gave me the same diagnosis. And at that point, they're like, "And do you want to start drugs for it?" And I was like, "I don't. This is why I'm moving. Let me move. Let me get settled down in North Carolina and let me get a doctor there." And they're like, "Oh, great. Duke and UNC are great medical facilities. We're living in the Triangle area here in the Raleigh area. So I'm surrounded by great doctors, blah, blah, blah." So then I got to North Carolina and set an appointment up. And 6 months later, because that was the earliest appointment in December, is when I met with someone at Duke Health, and same tests. But by that point, I started looking back and thinking, like, I have all these symptoms now, but are the symptoms Parkinson's? Are they, I'm 51? Are they something else? Like, there's no real, like, and the symptoms that I was having was aches and pains. Who doesn't have those, right?
Right.
Like foot cramps, like would wake me up in the middle of the night, those strong foot cramps. My smile, can't smile as brightly as I used to do. Like, it's just, so the facial, I forget what it's called. Again, you probably have much more knowledge about it than I do as far as technical terms. Another thing, like, I lose thought mid-sentence sometimes. Like, I really have a hard time. I used to be pretty quick-witted, and I find that I still have it a little bit, but I do lose sentences. So if anyone listening to this, I'm long pauses and trying to figure out what comes next. Is that part of it? Is that because I'm 51? Is that something else? I'm not really sure. The doctor kind of put it all together when I got here in North Carolina and said, you should start with some sort of medication to see, because that's the only way we're going to do it. Now, when I walked in there, my left hand was tremoring quite a bit. My left leg was starting to tremor and shake. I was having those tight muscles in my feet, like, would wake me up, really burning sensations in my legs, like harder to get up than usual. And as you know, I was pretty active. I would go to the gym, I would work out. I did a lot of theater. And then, what this diagnosis did, so he put me on a drug that didn't work. Then I go back every 3 months now, and I just get now the last time I went, I was up to meds twice already. But the last time I went, I wasn't upped. He was happy with that. My progress kind of was the same, because that's really how it's judged, is like, are you getting worse? If you are, okay, we have to alter your meds and go from there. But what the diagnosis did was, I looked back and I was like, when I was in 2017, when I was doing Cabaret, and where you came up to see it, and I remember the choreographer saying to me, something's wrong with your shoulder, lower your shoulder. Why is your shoulder so stiff? And I didn't think anything of it. So, and then I would fall up the stairs a lot. And my husband would always be like, what are you, clumsy? I'm like, I swear I never was. So looking back, I could have had symptoms way back into 2017, but it just didn't escalate enough, or I didn't progress enough until 2020, 2021, when I finally decided to do something about it with the doctor. So there's a long diagnosis story.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's interesting. I didn't want to interrupt you there. You said how there's no real true, okay, blood test, whatever, here's your diagnosis. I had recorded a little bit of an intro before our conversation, and I just happened upon this. I was talking about Rocksteady Boxing. It's a, franchise that's specifically for people with Parkinson's. I was looking at their Facebook page for the local one here in Northeastern Pennsylvania, and she had a link to a really interesting article about this woman in England, who she's been working with doctors there at, I think it's the University of Manchester, on this swab test that would help to diagnose, because they were saying they don't have a specific test to diagnose, which, I mean, obviously, if this does come to fruition, it would be awesome, because then people could get help sooner. They could get more accurate help. And, again, I don't know that much about this other than what I'm reading, but even with any health condition and people I've talked to, there's often so many times where it's like you rule out what it isn't, but it's often, even I know myself with different issues, I've gotten driving anxiety, and I thought I had vertigo, and I thought my one doctor thought it had something to do with women get with their heart, but there was no diagnosis. But it's like, okay, so it's not this, but a lot of times you don't get what it is. And even especially, I know, talking to Gab Bonesso has been on the show with her mental health issues, and getting the correct diagnosis, the correct medicine. So not to get too long-winded on that, but it would be great if there was an accurate test to help people. So when you were diagnosed, and I know they probably did a lot of neurological tests and things, did they ever do anything specific that's tied to Parkinson's? Like, okay, we're going to give you an MRI or a CAT scan, and we're looking for something, changes in your brain or whatever.
They have not as of yet. Now, they did ask if I wanted to be part of some sort of research project. And, me being me, said, absolutely not. I don't want more people involved with and knowing who I am and what my personal life is. So no, I know there are certain scans, there are certain tests that, could narrow it down closer to Parkinson's, but there's not really a true yes or no test whether you have Parkinson's disease. So that swab is great. That's the first time I've heard it, when you were talking about it. I do know there are certain scans. I don't think that's like a definite yes, you have it, but I think it narrows that window down a little bit closer to it. I opted not to have anything like that done as of yet. A lot of, again, I jokingly say, I when I go to the doctor, I always say, well, this symptom I'm having, but I'm also 51. And he's like, well, 51's not old, so stop saying that. He's like, you're 51, but your body's kind of acting like 71. So it's, it's just, but because it happened around 50 and everyone jokes, oh, you're turning 50 now, everything's going downhill. So I thought when a lot of my aches and pains were like, oh, this is what 50 must feel like. So the doctor's like, you really know it's not your age. This is, your body's a little bit acting like it's older than it actually is. So, so no, I did not have any specific tests like that. I'm just going with the motor tests and meeting with him. Now, who knows what will happen in the future? Like, will I start to have different tests? Yeah, because it's a frustrating disease, because like a lot of it's really changed my personality a little bit too. Like, I used to be kind of a little bit more laid back. Now I'm a lot more high strung. I'm a lot more stressed out. Again, is that Parkinson's or is that something else? I don't know. I can only spew out all my woes and my aches and pains. And then, if they fit the box, then yes. Like, I have like many things that have changed within the last year or two that I just don't know. Could that be related to either the disease itself or the medication that I'm having like a side effect? Because I did start to get like a really bad, like adult acne. And now I have, what is it, rosacea? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. I have that. Yeah.
I wasn't diagnosed with that, but I have like that redness. And again, I've never had it before. So again, in my head, okay, I moved to North Carolina. Is it allergies because my body's not used to it? Or is it Parkinson's? Or is it the medication that I'm on for Parkinson's? So it's really just a mind game, for, no pun intended, because it's a neurological disease, but it really is like a mind game. It does play on you a lot. So
yeah. Well, I'm sure you have to be wondering, what is the disease? What is aging? What is perhaps some other issue? Or like you said, the medication, which, as we know, can cause, a variety of different effects on the body, and to different people. It may not be the right one for you. You never know.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. Like, Parkinson's is different with every person. Like, some people have certain reactions to a medication, some don't. Some have symptoms that others never have, or have it much worse than others. So it's not just like one. I hate going back to cancer, but that's so fresh with my mom passing away from cancer, and I know a lot more about cancer than I do Parkinson's disease. Which says a lot about me and maybe society as well. Like, it's out there. Like, I appreciate Michael J. Fox for all he does. He's been a true advocate. I mean, he was so young when he was diagnosed. I think he was like 30 or 31.
29, it said, yeah.
29. And then like he didn't go public with it for a little bit later, but like, he's really pushing it. But like, there's more knowledge of cancer. So like with cancer, the treatments, what you have to do, stage 1 through 4. Now there are different stages of Parkinson's as well, but how are they diagnosed, and the doctor is just like, you have to just keep going on trying medications. He said the stronger the medications, obviously, the more the reactions you'll have, or side effects you'll have from the medication. So it's a disease. Now my grandfather, like I said, he was diagnosed, I'll guess 70. He lived to be 91. So he had a good 20 years. Now, does that mean in 20 years I'll be, dead? Sure, but I could be dead tomorrow when I fall down the steps, or
how lovely a thought. No, but
but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, exactly. And honestly, any one of us, I not to go morose or dark here, but I, even last night recording, a portion that I did, I get on Yahoo News and I'm like seeing, the author who wrote Julie and Julia passed at 49. She had cardiac arrest, I guess. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then today I'm seeing a different actor who's young, and I'm like, what is happening? And I'm sure this has always happened, I guess, but with social media, we see it more often. Right. People can pass away anytime.
Exactly. And like we just talked about Michael J. Fox, like my grandfather lived with it for like 20, 21 years, maybe. Michael J. Fox has been living with for like 30 years at least. So it really, it's different. It's how, how you're maintain and how you keep, exercise is really the one main thing that a person diagnosed with Parkinson's can do to help themselves. There's nothing else that I could do but being active, because exercise is the one, whether it's the endorphins, what it is psychologically or physically that does to your body, is the one thing that can slow the progress of it. So am I good at it? Sometimes, not always. The stress levels, that I get a lot more stress now than I used to before. And I just more anxiety than I used to have before. So like the idea of starting a gym routine again, I'm good when I go, I work out, I'm fine. And then 3 weeks later, if I slip up and fall, and I don't mean physically fall, but just like get off my routine, it's so hard getting back. So I need to be better with that, because that's really the only thing I can do to contribute to my longevity of life as far as the disease is concerned. So
Have you found, I know you had said, I think when we had talked earlier, not today, but that you didn't notice a big difference with the medications. Have you seen a change in that since they've increased dosage? Or
the first one, I was raised 3 times now. So the first, 2 times. The first time I started medication, that first medication, I even forget what it was called, did absolutely nothing. So the 3 months I went back and he said, do any change? I'm like, no. And he's like, either do I. So let's stop you. And then we changed drugs. And then we did that for a little bit. And then we upped that drug because I wasn't really seeing a progression. The last time I went, my husband, Jim, had said, I noticed that you're not tremoring as much. And I looked at him and I said, well, you're not with me all the time. What do you know? Like I see, because I'm at work, like, and I'll hear clicking or I'll hear paper rattling. And I'm like, well, it's so annoying to me because I'm focused on something, but then that draws my attention. So I am more conscious of it. Like I always joke, I put my hand in my pocket, and if it starts moving, then people think I'm masturbating. I don't care. Because I'd rather that than have them see my hand tremor and go, oh, what's wrong with him? Poor guy.
really? You'd rather they think you're masturbating?
Totally. Yeah. Again, because at least they'll be talking about, what a pervert. I'm like, oh, good. I'd rather them think I'm a pervert than that I'm sick.
That's interesting.
It says a lot about my weird sense of humor. So like Jim noticed a change. And then when I went to the doctor, he's like, I've noticed a change too. So let's not up your meds yet. Let's just go. I think I go back in January and then we'll assess again. Now, do I notice anything? No. I think it's the same. I don't think there's any changes at all. Again, are we our harshest critic? And, maybe that has something to do with it. But so yeah, I when I go out in public, I always have Jim sit, like if we go to the movies or a theater, I always have him sit to the left of me. So if I start shaking, it's him that gets annoyed, not the poor customer next or, patron next to me. At dinner, like I always have sit on my hand sometimes, or I always have my hand in my pocket at work, I'm holding a pencil. Like right now, if anyone's watching this, I don't know, but I'm holding the phone with my left hand, and it tremors a little bit. But if I'm holding something or doing something, it's fine. It's when I'm still. Like falling asleep's a real pain in the badoopy because it's like I can't stop tremor and then once I like kind of lose consciousness and not lose consciousness but drift into sleep,
once Jim hits you over the head,
once Jim hits me over the head with the frying pan, that works every time. I mean, I recommend that for those at home.
It's a great sleep hygiene
Can't
treatment.
sleep, here's the frying pan underneath the bed.
Cartoons, that's what I'm thinking of.
Exactly. So see little birds around my head and I drift off. And in the morning when I wake up, like for that, when you wake up and you're kind of in that like still groggy sleep, like the first thing I think of is like, oh, my hand's not tremoring. But as soon as I think it, then it starts to tremor. So like at night, I don't think I tremor. If not, Jim hasn't mentioned anything. Like it's like he's sleeping with Linda Blair in The Exorcist, I guess. I don't think it's that bad yet. So I haven't kicked him in the middle of the night for doing like spasm or something.
You don't have the Jimmy legs.
I do not yet. I did at the beginning, like there was one time where I was asleep. But once I started the meds, I had only done it once and he had noticed. So, and he can sleep through, we could have a hurricane and a tornado and an earthquake all at one and Jim would still be sleeping. He'll be like, what happened?
Well, that's good. Then you could really start swinging your arms or anything and he probably won't even notice.
Knock him out. He wakes up.
Knock him out of the bed.
Yeah, sure.
So would you say that's the biggest, well, you did say though, that you feel more stressed and everything. And so you feel your personality has changed a little bit. And the tremor, would you say those are the biggest impact that you notice on your health overall?
Overall, yeah. I mean, the other things are smaller, like the muscle aches and pains, the stiffness. Some of them are more extreme than others, like the tightness in your muscles and stuff. It's more than just like being sore. when a lot of people think about Parkinson's, they think of, oh, it's just a tremor. It really affects you from head to toe, anywhere. But the mental stuff, the tremors, I don't like because I don't like people to know. Like, I don't want to be out in public. Like, I actually was diagnosed in April of 2021, and I only told a handful of people, you included. I didn't actually come out again. How many times do I have to come out in my life?
Not
Until
another coming out
I know,
story.
honestly, how much attention
What's
does
next?
he need? What's next? Settle down. Are you there?
Yes.
Did
We
I
lost
lose
you
you?
there for a second. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. That was
You're forgiven.
I blame my Parkinson's.
I was going to say, if you're smart, you'll do that. It was the tremor, just kind of like bleeped you right out there.
I can do that all the time. So like, for me, it's the tremor. Like I said, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to know. I hate the whole idea of, oh, feel sorry for him. I don't, but I finally made the thing was after a year of being diagnosed, of meds being upped, a doctor keeps saying to me, yes, you have Parkinson's disease. Like, sometimes it took a while. Not that I was denying it or like saying, no, I don't, just look at something else. I was just like, I wanted it to like settle in a little bit with me, Lucas, my son, and Jim, just, to have them handle it. And then I finally told my dad. And then I was just like, again, what do we do in society these days? We put it on social media. That's the easiest way to spread the news. But I just did on my birthday saying, hey, it's my birthday. Here's my diagnosis. Donate to Parkinson's. And I just put up a little thing. Try to get a little donation out of it. So, so that's what I did. So for me, it's the tremor. I really hate people seeing it. And I always, like I said, jokingly put my hand in my pocket, or like sit on my hand if we go out for dinner or something. And it's the again, the stress level, I feel like I'll never be able to be on the theater, on stage again. Like, I just feel like my brain just isn't where it used to be. Like in 2018, I did a show, and I remember like I was very good with lines. Like, I would be off book fast, and I would know my lines, and I would know everyone else's lines. And the last show that I did, I felt starting like I was still good, but I was like, I was still starting to lose it. Now I don't think I could do it. It would, I think that part of my life, as far as a performer is concerned, is over. So that's the biggest thing for me, the tremor, and like, just my mind seems to be not what it used to be, not up to snuff, so to speak. And I hate that idea. Like, I could be talking to, like, having a normal conversation with you or my husband or anyone, and then all of a sudden I just lose what I was saying, and I just have to stop. And I'm like, what, is that normal for 51? I don't think so. Like, it is, but not to the extent that it happens, I think, to me. And I think that has something to do with the Parkinson's. So
yeah,
everyone walks into a room and goes, what did I come in here for?
I was going to say before,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I had a question pop in that I was going to ask you, and I completely lost it. And that's no joke. I really did. So I get that. And that's, we say 50, and that kind of the catch all for everything, which I used to always hate, because I'm like, you can be vibrant. There are people running marathons at 80. They don't always find the finish line. Hey, oh no, that's terrible. But no, there are people who are physically capable and mentally capable of doing a lot of things. But I think it's not just so much age. So, I mean, it could be for you, could be Parkinson's, it could be age, but it's also a busy mind, an overactive mind. I know, I feel like for myself, it's too much. I worry about nonsense a lot of times. One of my friends, Cheryl Kaiser, I love the expression, or the how she phrased it years ago. It's like with the phone, like all the apps that are turned on that we don't have turned off, like that are working behind the scenes. So it's all the worries in our head that I know for myself, like having conversations that never even happened. Like, oh, did that person get mad at the way I worded? So, you know what I mean? Yeah. I have all the worries of things that aren't even anything to worry about, on top of the real stuff. Like, oh gosh, I really have to pay that bill. Oh, I have to check in with my mom and dad. Oh, I have to. So it gets to be, for me, I know, and for a lot of people, I'm not saying I'm special, obviously. But we get so much overload that we forget. It's like a stressed out mind, I think, especially these days.
Yeah. So that could be it for me too. And I could just be equating the Parkinson's with that. I just don't know enough about all the symptoms. Like, I've joined a Parkinson's like website. I don't know the name of it. Don't ask me. I forget. The one that is related to Michael J. Fox. So I think it's the Buddy Network or something. And you can meet people and chat and like, oh, the symptoms. And, it was great when I started on there, people reacting to each other and answering questions. And then it just kind of like, now it's like, who are you? So I kind of lost that. But like, though, like all the symptoms I listed it was very common with everyone else that I was chatting with in the group. So, and again, a lot of people are, I'm considered early onset Parkinson's because I was diagnosed at 50, maybe late 40s is when I started having a little bit of symptoms, that went unnoticed to me. Like Michael J. Fox was 29, like you said. So obviously early onset. Most people are 60s, 70s that get diagnosed with it. So.
Yeah, that's the article I was reading last night. It was saying that 60 is like a pretty standard age where people would start to get diagnosed. But then again, we also, as we both said, there's no real test. So, the numbers that I read, they said are actually probably on the low end because people aren't being diagnosed properly. So it's hard to know exactly how many people have it.
Exactly. And it's funny, like a lot of people on that Buddy Network that I'm still a member and still on. I'm not as active on it anymore, but a lot of people were like, it's a place for them to vent and to other people that have the disease. Or there was a lot of caregivers on there as well. Like, how are you caring for? Because that was like my diagnosis. Like, I was like, oh, well, bring it on. I've been diagnosed with other things in my life and, it is what it is. I'll live with it. The worst thing is like, I don't want to be a burden on anyone. I'm a very independent person. So like, I don't want to be a burden for Jim. I don't want to have anyone have to take care of me. Like that was the biggest thing. Now that's not going to happen tomorrow, but in my head, I'm thinking, in 20 years, I don't want like Lucas, my son, or Jim, my husband, to have to like care for me because I can't take care of myself. Like that's what I don't want to happen. But that doesn't bother me as much because I'm kind of a live in the present kind of a guy. There are a lot of people out there that are diagnosed, like are just devastated and like scared to death. Like what's going to happen? I'm reading about what happens to us and what's going to happen. Everyone reacts to that diagnosis the way they react to it. And it's a personal one. And I can't say the way I do it is better than anyone else. So you just got to deal with it the way you best you can. But so I don't let it like run my life, but because it's a disease that the symptoms they're in my face every day. Like I can't, if you take a picture and look at me, I'm sure, no, nothing's wrong with him. He really needs some makeup and maybe some sleep, but other than that, he looks fine. But like, if you're, me daily, like seeing my tremor or feeling everything else that I'm feeling, it's a reminder. I can't forget that I have it. Like some people say, when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, she's like, I don't understand it. I feel fine. I can't believe it took her a hard time to really think like, I do have a tumor somewhere in my body. That's so weird for me. Like we had that conversation. Like for me, I see my hand tremoring. It's a constant reminder. So it's a little bit different. So.
Yeah. And do you really believe that, I know you said you think you're probably not going to act again. One, you really think that you wouldn't, I mean, exercise is good for the body. I'm sure in a similar parallel path, maybe do you think that maybe that could be true for the brain too? So that if you did take on a play that would help, or you really don't think you think it would be too much to take on?
I don't know. Because of that, I've tried many things. I've tried to pick up with my blogging again. I even tried doing a little podcast that it just didn't work out for me. Like I just couldn't, I couldn't work it out enough well to keep at it and keep doing it. Cause I was playing games with my phone because they're saying, oh, playing this game will help with your mind and stuff. I've started everything and then they've all weaned off. So I don't know. It's possible. I guess never say never.
Yeah.
I just know, like, I used to be able to like name songs and sing a song from 1982 without a beat and not miss a word. And like a lot of that, I'll be watching television. I'll be going, okay, I know that person. Who is it? How come I don't know this person? Of course I know it. And Jim will be like, that's so-and-so. And I'm like, how come I didn't know that? Like, it's just, and again, that's frustrating to me because pop culture and all that stuff comes so easy to me and I love it. And, some things dwindled away. Madonna has not. Madonna is still, I can still pick up a song in the middle of anywhere and know exactly what she's saying and singing and doing.
Yes, she's your ray of light and she always will be, right?
Yes.
So maybe someday we'll have to talk another time. Maybe we could work on a show about Parkinson's, or specifically for people with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
So if lines are forgotten, it's intentional. You know?
Boy, what an improv. That'd make me nervous. Improv is not my favorite thing. You know that. Oh, you
I
improv
know you
guru,
said
you.
that.
I know. It's a whole different way of acting. Like I give me a script, give me a character, and give me motivation. I'll build on that, and I'll know it, and I love it. And I can be a different character. But the idea of not knowing what's coming or being me on stage, acting someone it's a different, I don't know, side of your brain maybe, or a different way of thinking that I just am not as good at as others are, like you.
Wow. Oh, stop. Well,
Oh,
we'll
stop.
have to
No,
get
really, tell me more.
no, really. So we have more time in the show if you want to talk more about me. No, I'm just kidding. We'll have to get Mary Raypatch from Scranton Improv maybe on a Zoom session, because she's done those in the past during COVID. Scranton Improv did Zoom improv, just like games and fun. So one night we'll have to get Mary on here, and we can have some fun. Just to try it out in a safe space, you know, no
Safe
audience.
space. Yes, no audience.
No audience, just the three of us. That's all it's going to be. I'll have to reach out to Mary. So in closing, and again, I do appreciate you as always being gracious with your time. We had just had a lovely personal catch up over the weekend. I'm thinking, oh geez, this man's going to be sick of me. 3 hours of us chit chat. And I'm like, hey, do you have more time for me? But I do have some guests lined up for the coming weeks. And I appreciate you helping me out, because I did need a guest. Like I said, it's not glamorous. I'm not going to lie about this week. Because as I said in my intro, Parkinson's Awareness Month is actually April. So I'm not tying this to anything other than the fact that I will say Michael J. Fox has been, I don't want to say in my face, but like, see, he's been in my face. Get back, man. No,
Step back, Mike.
Come on, Mike, what you doing? Seeing his picture at ComicCon a couple weeks ago on Facebook, I was like, oh, look at him. And I did make note of, I thought he wasn't looking so great. And then I know he's on the cover of People magazine. So I was reading about it and I was like, oh, you know, I would wonder if Oliver would share his story and what's going on with him. So I do appreciate you sharing. Is there anything else that you would want to say? Obviously, like you said, you're in the early stages right now and you don't know. I mean, everyone's probably different in how they progress and what happens. But is there anything in closing that you would want to add that you didn't say, that we didn't talk about, or whatever?
Not that I can think of. Just like when it comes to like everyone deals with something differently, and like I said, this disease is, you don't know, so you can't look at someone. You don't, like when you're walking down the street and you see someone, you don't know what that person's going through in their own life. That Parkinson's is kind of like that disease. Like you can't say that there's something wrong with them, but yet the person living with it can definitely tell that they have something wrong with them and they're dealing with it. So. Take it day by day, you know, and just thankful that there are people like Michael J. Fox out there, because Parkinson's isn't the best. I don't want to say it, like you can't rank a disease. Like breast cancer gets a whole month, Parkinson's gets a month too, but is it as well known as like October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, correct? Am I wrong there?
October is, yes,
October,
yes.
Yeah. So, and I'm not ranking them and saying, oh, this one gets more attention or than this one, but
you're like, not comparing Parkinson's to Jan Brady.
I'm not. Why
teasing.
Does Jan Brady have Parkinson's disease?
No, she's like Marsha. It's like, oh, breast cancer.
No, and I'm not just picking on breast cancer either, but like, you know, World AIDS Day is December 1st, and like that gets a lot of attention, as it should. Breast cancer has a whole month, as it should have its own month. But like you know, cancer people, you always hear like, I see commercials for St. Jude, and I can't make it through a commercial without bawling my eyes out, because you know that's just, I hate seeing kids sick and stuff like that. But Parkinson's, until I learned about it, like I said, my grandfather and Michael J. Fox were my only references. And, you know, so I try to push the awareness of it. That's why on my, you know, Instagram, I have still the link up if people see it, you know, I mean, I have a private account, but you can still see the link, I think, if you click on it. So if people click on it and say where, like, I don't tell people that I have it. Like, I didn't tell anyone at work. Like, I don't say, hi, I'm Oliver. I have Parkinson's. Hi, Oliver. It's not like an AA meeting we go to. So it's just day by day, live with it, deal with it. And hopefully there's some sort of, I don't want to say cure, or I mean, every disease hopes for a cure, right? So people don't have to suffer. I
Right.
will say, again, you can't compare one disease, apples and oranges, right? Like you can't, like I'm by what I'm saying out loud, I don't mean to say that, people that are suffering with cancer, I'd rather have Parkinson's disease because I know what my mom went through, and that was just awful and horrible. So, and what I'm going through right now is so many levels beneath that. Like I can't even compare it. But everyone has their own struggles and deals with them differently. So, like I said, I see some people saying Parkinson's devastated me. I can't believe, what am I going to do? Where I was more like, well, let's see where it leads, and hopefully we'll make the best out of it. So everyone's different in how they feel with it. So if you know someone with Parkinson's, talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. It's not, unless that person obviously doesn't want to. And just be supportive.
Okay. And I'd like to point out like your attitude. When I do my laughter yoga workshops, I always mention Norman Cousins. He wrote the book An Anatomy of an Illness as Perceived by the Patient, and he had ankylosing spondylitis, which was a connective tissue disorder. And his outlook, like as they told him, oh, this is serious, this isn't good. But, I mean, he was fortunate. He was a man who was the editor in the 60s of the Saturday Review. So he had a good job, he had money, so he could pay extra for what he did with his care, but he got traditional medical care. But then he also basically started laughter therapy. And he's the person that, a lot of people will be like, when I say his name, they're like, no, I don't know that story. But then when I say, oh, they wrote about him in the New England Journal of Medicine because he helped himself by watching Candid Camera and Marx Brothers movies, and he got pain-free sleep because of the laughter. And then people say, oh yeah, I kind of heard of that. And my connection, I am going to bring it back around, is just the attitude. Like his thought was, I am the vessel, the body containing this disease. If my outlook or my feelings about it are more positive and hopeful, I believe I can, have a good outcome, or at least push it in that direction. So as you saying, let's see how it goes, as opposed to feeling devastated. And again, not that anyone's wrong to feel that way, as long as you don't dwell in it or live in it, because whether it's Parkinson's or, something like a divorce or job loss, dwelling for too long is never a good idea, because it is harmful, to your health. So having that good attitude that you have is great. And that is good, obviously, in any struggles that we face in life. So, and to your point too, as you said, it is a disease. There are certain diseases that people just are more knowledgeable about, because you do see them more in the media and things like that. But I will tell you, I did see on Facebook, I must have clicked on something because of you for Parkinson's. So I saw a challenge maybe a month or two ago. It was like, they all have these challenges. Cancer Society, like walk so many miles or do so many push-ups or planks or whatever. So now I do get emails from, it might be the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I'm not positive, but it is something to do with Parkinson's. So, well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And, again, we're not trying to say we're experts. This is Oliver's story. Neither of us are certainly, experts in the field. And again, my intro, I was just sharing some information that I read. I will share some links when in the show notes for the podcast, and when I promote the podcast, so that you can look up some links to, Michael J. Fox's foundation, which is probably one of the most prominent. He's obviously a great advocate for this disease and finding a cure. So I will put all that information in the show notes and in the promotion. So thank you again, Oliver, for joining me.
Thank you, Janine, for having me.
Wonderful. And I look forward to talking to you again, probably for a lot longer, because we can not usually keep it succinct, right?
Exactly.
And to my listeners, to let you know, coming up, as I said in my intro, I don't have a real theme for November, but I do have some wonderful guests lined up. I have a woman who will be sharing her story, excuse me, her story of mental health that she's gone through, loss of her brother to suicide. I have another woman who's going to be joining me who does a lot for the community here in Scranton, especially around Thanksgiving coming up. They'll be doing like food drives and things around the holiday, clothing drives, things of that nature. So a lot of great guests that I look forward to speaking with, that I hope that you can learn from, be inspired by, and possibly, get some entertainment while you're listening. So as I always say, thank you for listening. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.